to Sure Things. I'm Mary Polchininoff, and today we're fortunate to have some guests that were recommended by a former guest. I always love when that happens because they bring in some personal information with it. The former guest, Craig, had said to me, I just met with somebody, I think they'd be great for your show. So very happy today to talk about our topic. And to start our discussion, I'd like to introduce our guests for today. We have Kathy Moniello and Guy Tommasi. Guy Tommasi. Now, Kathy, you're from Forevermore Homes,
yes.
And Guy, from you're managing director from Lifetime Care
at Home,
yeah.
Correct.
So today's topic, we're going to talk about aging in place.
Aging in place, yes.
Aging in place. A topic I'm sure everyone can relate to, whether our personal experience or our families or neighbors. But before we get to the topics, could you give us a little background and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Go first?
Yeah.
Sure.
So I've been in Connecticut a native my whole life. I went to the University of Connecticut, so I'm a Husky. And when I graduated back in the early 80s, I fell into the insurance business, as many of my contemporaries did, you know, the capital, insurance capital of the world. And I was in sales and management, and I did risk management. And then my company got acquired by a bank, and I ended up working with management there to develop a sales training program, which was a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed bringing people together in teams and watching them sell and grow and meet their goals. So I decided to take that and form a company, sales training and consulting, which I did.
Good for you.
And then about 5 years ago, I had an experience with my mom. And my mom she's a widow, and she lived in a home by herself, and she was done with it. She wanted to move, and she kept talking about it, and talking a little bit louder and a little bit more. I really don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of the yard work, and she was done. But she really did not know what direction she wanted to go in. It was a bit confusing. So if I leave here, where would I go? How much can I get from my house? What type of home do I want to live in? And so she and I went on this journey, and we ended up selling her place and moving into a condo. She loves it. It's all one level. She can walk to town. But also, it wasn't just about where she was living. It was about her whole life. So we started doing a little bit of estate planning, a little bit of elder care planning, some financial planning, really looking at the full picture. So after that, I decided I wanted to go into real estate. And I got my real estate license, and I focused on seniors. I got my senior real estate specialist designation.
Oh, I didn't even know there was such a thing.
There is. And then I realized that was just a really small component of the whole picture. And I began to hear more about aging in place and doing more research into aging in place, and realizing that there are so many people like my mom. And it's not just about the elderly either. It's people that have become injured and disabled. Anyone in a situation where they're needing to think about the rest of their lives and where they're living. And so I formed Forevermore
You formed
Homes.
another company.
Yeah,
there
exactly.
You go.
Yes. Sorry for that long.
No, that's great. It backs up your passion. Really demonstrates your passion. Hey, Guy, how about your background?
Well,
What led you here?
I've been in the home and healthcare world for over 40 years. I started at Hartford Hospital in the hospital world, and then transitioned over to home and community based. So for the past 20 years, I've been specifically in the home-based community, doing the non-medical piece and keeping people safe in their home.
Wow.
And when the opportunity to meet with Kathy, it was just a natural fit of getting a place prepared and having the support there so they can be in their home environment. So I've been in healthcare pretty much ever since I left college, and I love it. I loved it.
And it sounds like you grew with it in so many different ways, which is awesome. So let's talk about the topic, aging in place. Can you tell us what that even means? I have various ideas in my head. But
So it's kind of this vague concept, and if you look it up, you Google it, you'll find definitions by AARP and by the CDC and the National Council on Aging, and they all say something to the effect that aging in place is about helping a person live safely and comfortably in the home of their choice for as long as they wish. And so, to me, those definitions fall short. When I was young in sales, I had this client who tormented me, and every time I tried to tell her something about a benefit of a service or something, she'd look at me and she'd say, well, so what? Well, so what? And she kept saying
That's a tough one.
She was tough, but I learned so much for that you can't take it for granted that something that you feel is implied and people should just naturally get, you should state it. So I'd like to take that definition
Sure.
and take it a little step further and say, so that you do not ever have to go to a nursing home. And even with that, you can still say, well, so what? Well, so you can maintain your independence, so that you can keep the money that you've worked so hard for all your life, so that you can spend time. So I try to drive it home that this is about quality of life, and it's about not having to go to a nursing home.
And I can relate to when you say quality of life. And we had talked earlier that my folks, my parents, my mom and dad, and my husband's mom all ended up in nursing homes. And we talk about the quality of life, and it was just heartbreaking.
Right.
It's very hard.
Especially now with COVID, right?
Yeah.
You know, it is. It's very difficult with that because there's isolation.
Yeah.
There's loneliness. And that has, we forget that that's a big part of the quality of life. And we talk about that aging in home. It's become, sometimes we say it too often, but fail to connect all the dots of what that means. So, yes, giving them their independence, giving them their safety, where they want to be. They want to be in the comforts of their home, but with dignity, so that if they need that support, it's there. If the environment around them is supportive and allows them to maintain that independence, that quality, their quality of life is extended immeasurably.
So we have to, we talk about extension, quality of life extension. Michael's father, my husband's father, is 103.
God bless him.
And still living at home.
Yeah.
So I wonder about that. He has his office, he has his workspace, he has his facility, all on one level, and he has family not far, but he is basically living alone. So I think about that. Yeah.
And that's perfect because we've seen, in the years that I've been doing this, we've seen and we've heard from our own clients that say, you've extended my father's life another 5 years, another 10 years, because he's been, rejuvenated, that he's able to stay in his home with the right supports in place.
Yeah.
And it sounds so simple, but it's really not. Like the story about my mom and some of the confusing decisions that she was going through. And I think because of that, some people don't plan for it and they wait until the need is urgent. And then that's unfortunate because then the decisions that they're making aren't necessarily well thought out, they're rushed, and it may not have the best outcome.
Might have the right.
So there are definitely some challenges to aging in place.
Can we talk more about that, the challenges of aging in place? And I think you have a slide. Is this a good time for that slide?
I think the slide goes with what Guy is going to talk about. I'm going to start by talking about safety.
Sure.
One of the key obstacles to aging in place is making sure that the person remains safe at home. And when you think about safety, there's a lot of things, but what I always come back on is falls. So I have some statistics that were published by the CDC, and falls, the headline, falls are serious and costly, and I cannot emphasize that enough. Each year, 3 million older people are treated in emergency departments. Over 800,000 patients a year are hospitalized because of a fall injury. It talks about hip fractures. 95% of hip fractures are caused by falling. And to take hip fractures and elaborate on that, hip fractures are associated with significant morbidity, mortality, loss of independence, financial burden. The reported one-year mortality after a hip fracture is estimated to be 14 to 58%. Now that's a wide range, but even 14% is.
Sure.
So I can't emphasize that enough, that there are so many fall hazards within the home, and we need, in order to age in place safely, we need to eliminate those hazards.
Right. So that's the good news.
Yes.
There are precautions, as you said earlier, to take, to put in place. And that's important with the falls. So again, to follow up on part of my story, my 103-year-old father-in-law, who's living at home, who's amazing, just had a fall. And he's now in a facility for a broken arm. And
How did he fall?
He was in his house. From his office to another room, there's one step. And that was the step. So anyway, so that everything is so relevant right now and really ties in. So the safety is a big part.
And the other big challenge that Guy will speak to is getting the right support.
Yeah.
And that's some of the biggest challenges is, and when we were talking about it, it's act now when you're in the position to do so.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times we're at a health and wellness expo, and people will come by the table and say, "Oh, not yet. I'm good."
Don't
and
need
my
you yet.
answer is usually, "This is the time to begin thinking," because that thought process does get compromised when you're in an emotional state. When you're told your dad or loved one cannot be discharged home unless there's support in place or the environment is accessible, that's a panic-driven emotional reaction where you don't get that. And then when you start to think it through, it's like overwhelming, and the stress factor starts to play
Do
a
you want
big
to
part.
bring that slide?
Yeah,
Sure.
we have a slide to talk about the activities of
Right.
daily living. If we could have that slide. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
This is the activities of daily living, which is what all of us do, maybe to even take for granted every day. These, when any one or two of these are compromised, it creates a chronic condition that really elevates the inability to take care of yourself. And as you could see on the screen here, you have everything from companionship to personal care. Every one of these allows someone to remain independent in their home.
That's a very important one.
And what's important is, especially if you're visiting a loved one, little things that start to trigger, is the house not kept up the way it used to be? Is there some old food in the refrigerator? Are bills stacking up? Does mom or dad not look the way they used to look? Those are little signs that we may take for granted ourselves, but may be very noticeable. Those are the initial signs that, maybe a little bit of support could be key. And it doesn't need to be all day and all night. You're only talking maybe a couple hours to assist in the morning.
Can make a difference, right?
Can make a difference that immediately you could see. These are all tangible enough where you could see immediate signs of improvement, both physically, emotionally, mentally.
Oh, thank you. Well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to see some more information on this.
Great.
We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Smart TVs and streaming services have taken over the television industry. VSC TV is proud to announce our presence on Apple TV and Roku to make watching your favorite shows even easier. You can access this service by downloading the Cablecast ScreenWeave app. Then choose Valley Shore Community TV from the list of channels. Select VSC TV Live to watch our channel in full HD. Or pick a show from our on-demand video library. VSC TV is your local Connecticut Midshore Valley digital connection.
Hi, welcome back. Today's topic is aging in place, and we're here with Kathy and Guy. So we had just been talking about some activities of daily living, and we saw the list of those areas to look at and to take notice of, which we could address. What other ideas do we have with aging in place?
Well, just to finish up on
Right.
Guy's discussion of ADLs, I think what's very important is for when we start to have difficulty with our ADLs, to just form a relationship with a home care agency so that you, as your need progresses, as your mobility declines and you have additional needs, you have that relationship formed. So I can't emphasize that enough, to start looking and researching and forming these relationships early. The other side of that coin is to get your house ready. So I'd like to talk a little bit about
yes, that's
what we look for when we want an age-in-place ready home, and I do have a slide on this as well.
Okay, if we could look at that slide. This is a very interesting topic.
So
Yeah.
there are many details when we're thinking about preparing our home to age in place, but I think if we focus on these 5 components, we're really off to a good start. We talked about falls earlier, so
Right.
the easiest way to eliminate falls is to eliminate stairs. Stairs is one of the biggest culprits, and so one-level living is important. And even if you don't live in a one-level home and you have 2 stories, well, how can we repurpose a room on the first floor to make it into a master bedroom and bath? So there are many ways, even if your house is not one level, to put everything you need on one level. So that's number 1. Number 2, and this also goes along with preventing falls, is the curbless shower. So when I hear of people renovating their bathrooms and they do not put a curbless shower in, I get so upset, because it just, to me, it's just such a simple thing that we can do. And if at some point you're in a walker or in a wheelchair, you can just roll in. And even that threshold of a shower is a fall hazard. Number 3, wide hallways and doorways. So, there may come a point when we need to be in a wheelchair, and let's prepare for it. So let's make sure our hallways and our doorways are wide enough, at least in the area where we can move from a bedroom to a bathroom to a living area. Number 4 is space for a caregiver. So this is important because, as Guy said, the needs may progress from just an hour or 2 a day to 24-hour care. If you have a space in your home that you've prepared that's a nice little living space, maybe it even has a kitchenette and a bathroom, you're going to make your caregiver super happy, and that's going to go a long way in you attracting and retaining a quality caregiver. So if you can plan for that space, that's great. Last but not least is the location. So if you're off on a country road way out in the woods and there's no sign of your neighbors, you can't hear them, they can't hear you, you're very isolated. So in that regard, I think it would make sense for a person to consider moving to an area where there's some activity and some light,
Community,
so they maintain that connection to their community. And so for some, the right thing to do is to stay where they are and modify where they are. For others, it's better to move to somewhere more age-in-place friendly.
Those were very interesting. I do agree. We talked earlier about the slide on the neighborhood. And I had talked about being in a small community where if somebody has had an operation or an issue, people are checking.
They watch out for each other.
They watch out for each other, which is so needed.
For sure.
Right. So how do you go about then planning which to do?
So we have a slide for that.
Okay, it's a slide for that.
I know this slide looks a little bit busy, but we'll.
It's planning one. Okay,
yes, so the first thing is to do an assessment, and whether you work with a certified age-in-place specialist or you just kind of get together with your family and think through some of these issues, assess where you are. There are some good resources out on AARP, some checklists that you can take and go around your home and look for opportunities. But it's also a time to plan around your financial plan and your estate planning. So it's really taking stock of where you are, what your challenges are, what your goals are, and really setting that baseline. From there, I strongly recommend for anybody to do a home inspection. So when we buy a home, we do an inspection, but then we live there for 25 years. we never think about it again. But it's an opportunity to go around the home and identify areas that need to be maintained because they could result in safety issues, or they can result in deterioration of your home. So if your decision is to modify, if you're going to put in a curbless shower but your roof is leaking, we could do everything at once. If your decision is to move, you can take care of these maintenance issues before you list your house.
That's such an interesting idea.
And it's
as
simple.
you said, we never do it again after we buy the house.
Exactly. And then if you have a medical issue, I work with someone now with Parkinson's, so we brought in an occupational therapist. And she said with Parkinson's, turning is difficult. Your brain says turn, but your body. So that became part of our plan, that we knew we had to design a straight path for him from his living area to his bedroom to his bathroom, and that's what we did. So we took her input, and then that input went to a designer that said, okay, we want a curbless shower, we want to bring the laundry up from downstairs. We gave her all of the goals that, and the observations from the home inspection say, okay, how do we do this now within the footprint of what they currently have? And that's the designer's job, to make the best use of the space. So then the designer's plans go to a contractor, and the contractor would bring in all their subs and get pricing. So if we're to stay in this home and we know now what we need to change, how much is it going to cost?
Yeah, I was thinking the cost, I'm adding it up, and it just sounds like it would be very costly, but I guess you're going to say they have to weigh that
We have to weigh it out.
versus moving.
Exactly.
Right.
So now the next piece is, okay, what is my home worth? How much equity do I have in it? What else is out there in the marketplace, and how much do those options cost? And then now you really have all of the pieces of the puzzle, financial, emotional, and you package everything up, and you go and talk to your trusted advisors and say, here's what I'm thinking, and have them weigh in on what makes best sense given their financial and estate planning goals.
That is
so
a process. But
it's a comprehensive process,
Yes.
but I think each step is important.
Yes.
And if I could, as Kathy is talking, going along, I could see and hear people going, wow, that's a lot. The important thing is not a lot so much as money, maybe as overwhelming.
Yeah.
What we hope to convey is that there are people and services available to assist in that process.
Yeah.
This is a journey that you don't need to go alone. You don't need to go with, oh my God, where do I start?
Yeah.
There are services available to reach out and have all this organized now. Do it now when you're able to. I think that's the message, at least from I want to convey.
No, that's an important one too. We have about 5 minutes left, so I did want to get to the other parts too. Did you want to talk about the cost analysis part, or
Sure.
is that a good time to?
I think so. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
we've talked about this topic, so now what really are the benefits?
So you're comparing here the cost of.
Yeah, this screen shows this is done by Genworth Financial, and every year they put out a financial cost of care, both from a inpatient nursing home, you see a private room, share room, and in home care. And you could see significantly the cost is much more cost effective, much cheaper. And as we transition to different types of payment models, cost is a driver in so many ways. And a lot of the services are private pay, long-term care insurance. And in today's market, between Medicare and Medicaid and the programs that are out there, it's really important that the consumer sees the cost of care and understands that. And again, I go back to what I said. These may be numbers that are going on in someone's mind saying, $100,000.
Yeah.
My God. Well, when you step back and go through that process, you'll see that this is much more cost effective. Having my house renovated, having care brought in, I could stay here for a long time.
Yeah, to be with your neighbors and close to family.
Correct.
Yeah, good parts of that. Great. Thank you so much. So we talked about the cost benefits. Did you want to talk about the social part too?
Sure.
Yeah, that would be great. If we had that side, that's the social determinants. Oh, okay, here we have. Okay.
That's
The social
All right.
determinants of health, this has become the big buzz over the last few years, because what we found in a number of surveys is the social determinants of health are the non-medical areas. Okay, 80% of health outcomes is directly resulted around here, and in its basic form, you're talking nutrition, transportation, housing, education. When we focus on that, the cost of care comes down, and these are basic things: nutrition, housing, education, transportation. Those are what drives people back into the emergency room and into. So if you get this laid out, 80% chances you're going to stay home.
Oh, see, I love that this is where we're ending on.
Yes.
Because I know we talked about all the way through, but we started with how dire it can be with statistics, and then when you have something like this where you know there's a support out there, considering all these areas, that it's hopeful. If you're planning ahead. Yeah.
So it's an
Yeah.
important topic, and I hope this conversation
Yeah.
that we're having has
Oh,
inspired people to start thinking about this and talking about it in their own families.
Yes, I would hope so. I think it was very enlightening because you covered everything from, the whys to the hows to the how much. So you covered the whole basis there. So I want to thank you very much
Our pleasure.
for coming on and enlightening us, educating us, because it is enlightening, and I hope it does inspire people to plan ahead.
Well, thank you for inviting us.
Oh, yes. Thanks
again, Mary.
There's a lot to talk. We might come back and do this again.
All right.
There's a lot to talk.
That'll be great.
Yes. I want to thank you for tuning in today to Sure Things. Again, please send me any comments, questions you might have about today's show or recommendations for any other show to surethingsct@gmail.com. I hope to hear from you. Until next time, take care.